Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I am Scott. Is the weekly reading wrap up for the 14th to the 20th of March. Let's go ahead and get started. I finished 6 books this month, and I did not finish one book that's about 550 pages that I have to have done for book club tomorrow. I'm 120 pages in. And rather than read this book, I kept finding excuses to read other books. So, and when I say I finished 6 books, I mean I finished them. I did not read 6 entire books within this week. Some of them I did read within the week. Others I just finished that I've been reading for a while. At least 2 of them I think I've been reading for over a month. So, let's go and get started. The first book I finished is The Christmas Chronicles by Nigle Slater. As you can see, it's got the bookmark out. There we go. It's a pretty nice looking book. I got this for Christmas a few months ago, from Robin. It looks nice. It goes into a little bit about the Nigel's own feelings about Christmas and preparing for Christmas and Christmas meals. And what I can say about this book is it looks good. This is a good looking book that'll probably end up on a shelf in my guest room, which is decorated for Christmas all year long. As far as the contents, it looks good. It's not a bad book. I read it. There are recipes in here. He is British, so many of the recipes have metric weight as opposed to what Americans are used to. But I can translate that. If I wanted to cook the meals, I'll be quite honest, a lot of the food that he makes, I don't really want to prepare. It's a little pretentious for me. I have my set family Christmas dinner pretty much, although we have changed the main course quite a bit recently. It used to be turkey and ham. Then my daughter converted to Judaism, so we couldn't have ham. Then prime rib, which I loved, but not everybody else loved. So last year, in the year before, made brisket. So brisket is what we're making. And I'm talking more about our Christmas meal than I am about the book, because there's not really a lot to say about the book. It was fine. Nothing particularly interesting in it. It has some nice pictures in it. Has some thoughts about Christmas that I don't really connect with. But again, it's a nice looking book. It's going to be on my bookshelf in my Christmas room, or the guest room, which is the Christmas room. So not really much else to say about that. 2.5 stars, mainly for how I almost dropped it and how nice it looks. So the next book I finished is The Complete Peanuts, the years 1953 through 1954. This is volume 2 of The Complete Peanuts. These are the only books I have in the Complete Peanut set. I also got these for Christmas. I did not like this as much as the first one, although there were a lot of things in the first one which were different than what I remember about Charlie Brown, because the way it started out is different than the way it ended up. And there are still things in here that are a little bit different. This is 2 full years. Linus is there, but he's still a baby. I think at the very end, he's starting to grow a little bit. Snoopy shares his thoughts adults' words can be read on the screen. I don't know if I'm just in my mind. I'm thinking about the cartoon where it's like wah, 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 wah. But I feel like I remember in the Peanut comic strips that the adults' words didn't come out. It was basically the equivalent to wah, 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 wah. But that's not the case in here. Shermie and Violet are still major characters in here, although Lucy is definitely taking a more prominent role, and she has grown up a little bit within the space of the comic strip. Pigpen has been introduced, and I think that's about it. Now, the thing that is more in line with what I remember about Peanuts is that everybody's addicted to Charlie Brown. It's becoming quite heavy-handed, and that's where I encounter a problem with Peanuts books, is that I have read since January about 620 to 50 pages of Peanuts comics, as opposed to, like, if I were reading in a comic strip, I would just read one comic every day. So I'm just getting bombarded with everybody being an asshole to Charlie Brown. And Charlie Brown doesn't deserve it. So it's hard to enjoy it, reading it in the way I did. What I should have done is if I wanted to enjoy the comic strip, I should have read it like it was a comic strip and just did one comic at a day. And I didn't do that, so I did not enjoy it as much as I probably would have. We're just really heavy into everybody being addicted to Charlie Brown, especially Lucy and Violet and I can't remember Patty, but not Peppermint Patty. So, all right, move along. So I'm going to go ahead and give that one 3.5 stars. And a lot of that is my fault for the way in which I read it. If I had read it more spaced out, I do believe I would have enjoyed it more. The next book I finished was The Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orczy. Probably mispronounced that one also. This was written, I believe, in 1905, but it was set in the late 1700s, I believe, during the French Revolutionary War. The Scarlet Pimpernel is a British person who helps rescue aristocrats in France, where they are at risk of being sent to the guillotine. Apparently there are at least 100 people a day being sent to the guillotine. A Frenchman comes to London to try to find out who the Scarlet Pimpernel is, to catch him. We see a lot of this novel through the eyes of Lady Blakeney, who is French, but she has married a British aristocrat, Sir Percy Blakeney, who is, I guess, a bit of a dandy, bit of a fop. And she has a little bit of a stain on her name because there are people who think she is responsible for the deaths of some aristocrats in France, although she didn't do the things that she did necessarily on purpose. And that has caused a strain in her relationship with her husband. And she isn't. She is talked to by Citizen Chapelain, who is there trying to find the Scarlet Pimpernel, basically trying to blackmail her into helping him. It's a little bit different than I was expecting, because I was expecting an adventure novel. I'll be quite honest. Not a lot of adventure in the novel. Again, most of the point of view is through her eyes, and I expected to see this Scarlet Pimpernel. I'm holding a sword for some reason. I expected to see him in action. Really don't see very much of that. But I still enjoyed it. I will say something that bothered me about this, and I don't know if it's an affectation of the author or perhaps just the way novels were written back then or about that time. But almost every time one of the two main female characters, uh, Lady Blakeney and another girl named Suzanne, who was rescued by the Scarlet Pimpernel and who has a very secondary uh, romance, sort of, with another character in the novel. It it kind of happens a little bit off the page, but every time they're described as girlish. I I think the phrase, the word girlish was used, uh, I don't know, 40, 50 times. And, and I point out that the author was a woman, but again, I don't know about the time frame, but I also listened to this on audiobook, so it started to grate on the nerve a little bit. But overall, I thought it was, despite it not being the novel that I was thinking it was going to be, I thought it was a good read. There are sequels to it. I do not plan to read them. I have discovered that this is generally seen as the best book in the series. And I don't know that I feel like I need to read further into it. Never say never, of course, but no plans as of right now. I'm going to go ahead and give that one a 4 star. The next book is Tempting Olivia by Claire Ashton. I went through this whole phase of saying, I'm not going to read romance books anymore. I'm just going to read Wodehouse books. And I did read Wodehouse books, which I will also point out in a little bit. And I have read further in some Wodehouse books, but I didn't fully submerge myself in Wodehouse this week. So I read this book, which is by the same author of Meeting Millie, which is one of the books I read last summer. I greatly enjoyed Meeting Millie. I don't know what ranking I gave it, but it was probably definitely a 4 to 4.5 star. This one involves Olivia. Olivia is a friend of Charlotte, who was one of the main characters in Meeting Millie, the other one being Millie. Uh, Olivia is her somewhat grumpy, pragmatic friend. In the first book, we have Millie, who's just a curvaceous, bubbly, kind of blonde, albeit with hidden depths, and Charlotte, who's kind of an absent-minded but intelligent lawyer, uh, who just basically gets lots of people to fall in love with her without really trying to. Olivia was interested in her, but Charlotte's feelings for Millie always got in the way, even when Charlotte and Millie weren't together. But enough about that book. So Olivia is single, and she is a family law lawyer. She has a client come in for a divorce, and it turns out it's Kate, who is a famous actress who Olivia happens to be a great fan of, although she does not show that to her because Olivia isn't great at showing feelings. I'll be quite honest. It's easy to like the characters when they're like Millie and Charlotte. With Olivia, it's kind of harder. Also, uh, Olivia has a mother who should be Charlotte's mother, and Charlotte has a mother who should be Olivia's mother because they basically kind of take after the other person's mother, and she doesn't really appreciate her mother much and does enjoy Charlotte's mother, but I do like that actually plays a part in the novel. So Kate is getting a divorce, and an attraction forms between them. And Olivia is also a very competent and conscientious lawyer, so that plays a part in it too, because she's not going to do anything with a client. So I did enjoy this novel. I like I said, I don't remember what I ranked Meeting Millie. It could have been 4.5 stars, but I'm going to rank this as 4. There are signs that there may be another book in this series, and if it is, I'm both interested in it and like I don't know if that's going to work for reasons I can't explain. That we're given possibly a preview at the end of the novel of what the next novel may be. I have also read I forget the name of the book, but it's Is it Poppy Montgomery? It's Poppy something by Claire Ashton. I really like that book too. So she is an author that the 3 books that I've read, I have enjoyed. The next novel that I finished is P.G. Wodehouse, A Prefect's Uncle. This is the second book that he published. It was published in 1903. This is when he was still writing school stories. This one is set at Beckford, whereas some of his other ones are set like at Riken and St. Austin's, but this is at Beckford. It's a little bit more linear than the Pot Hunters, and while it does have a lot of characters, it doesn't have quite as many characters playing major roles in this. Man, I've forgotten his name because it's a strange name. So Gethryn is a prefect at Leicester House. Leicester House is not the greatest of houses. It has a reputation mainly because of Leicester, who it is a master there at school, but honestly does not really play a part in the novel itself. Gethryn, has to go meet his uncle at the train station. It turns out his uncle is actually 4 years younger than him and is going to school. This is Farney. Farney is a bit of a troublemaker, and he makes life a little bit difficult for Gethryn. So much so that Gethryn has to leave a cricket match because of Farney. And because Farney is blood, Gethryn won't sell him out and tell people why he's there. So a lot of people in the school hold it against him. And a lot of the novel is him dealing with that. And of course, you have the other troublemakers, Monk and Danvers, mainly Monk, who don't like Gethryn for reasons and try to also make his life difficult. There's also a subplot about a poetry contest. Lorimer, another student, wants to do well in this poetry contest. He has to write something for it anyways, but he wants to do well because apparently his family is into poetry. So he talks to Pringle, another student, who helps him, and there's a whole subplot about that poetry contest, which doesn't really have anything to do with the main plot with Gethryn, but luckily, unlike the Pot Hunters, it's really mainly just 2 plots throughout this. I will say one thing that sort of bothered me and sort of didn't bother me was that Farney disappeared through a large portion of this. In the second half, he makes very little appearance in it. It's basically like he was there to do this plot point. When he did his plot point, Wodehouse was like, well, I don't really need you anymore, so I'll just bring you around at the end and do this. So it wasn't bad. I do like Gethrin as a character. I liked his friendship with some of the other boys. I felt like, again, it was just more cohesive than the Pot Hunters, and I think it was better than uh, a few other Wodehouse school stories that I read. Uh, but it was just barely better than average, so I'm going to go ahead and give that one a 3-star. And the last book that I finished was Falls from Grace by Ruby Landers. It was a well. Let me talk to you real quick about this. This is Kristin Hanna's The Great Alone. This is a book for book club that I have to talk about tomorrow night at book club. As you can see, not as far as I'm 124 pages in, it's like 550 pages. So I'm not doing great. So what I did was last night, I'm like, how about I look on Kindle Unlimited and find another book that I finished in less than a day? And then I go, I'm never going to finish this book. But it is another sapphic romance. Savannah Grace is a country star who has gotten divorced from her husband. They were in a band together. He cheated on her. She has a 3-year-old child. So she's kind of fallen out of the spotlight after this because she's taking care of her kid. She decides to do an album outside the country realm, so she enlists songwriter Noah. Noah has a best friend, Bryn. Bryn is, she dropped out of medical school. She's an alcoholic, although she's been sober 6 years. She's a lifeguard in LA, and she's just been evicted from her apartment. So she doesn't really have anywhere to go. So Noah says, come with me to Vermont, where I'm going to be writing songs with Savannah Grace. And they're like, let's say you're my wife. And they go there pretending to be husband and wife. And Bryn is a lesbian, and she and Noah are best friends. So they go there, and she has an almost immediate attraction to Savannah. And it seems like Savannah may be attracted to her also. Savannah also has her son, Tucker, who takes to Bryn pretty much right away. And it's a slow burn. I will say, if you don't like sex scenes, this book will be for you for almost the entire novel. But then if you don't want sex, I would say stop in the last couple of chapters because it gets explicit. I enjoyed both characters, and I understood everybody's motives, even if they did things the wrong way. And I actually like, a lot of the times in these romance novels, especially novels that are kind of LGBTQ, families suck. And it's not like families don't suck in here. Savannah's family sucks, but we don't really see him. Bryn's family, maybe there are issues on both sides. I do have a little bit of problem with how that went a little bit, but it was generally, as far as families go, it was decent. I will say that you do have to do a little bit of suspension of disbelief because, and I'm not saying that what happens in this novel doesn't happen, because sure, it does happen, but it seems almost like, really? You're going to go that way? But okay, and it has to do where Bran progresses from where she's at through like the first half of the novel to where she ends up. It's not 100% unbelievable, and it's not anything crazy. I just don't want to spoil it for you. But it's just like, okay, I think I would have felt better if you had just given me a little bit of clues there first. And it's like, no. And I understand why, because it wanted to be like this presentation of discovery for one of the characters. But it just feels like it came out of nowhere. But I still enjoyed the novel. Like I said, I finished it in a day, and I've been reading this one for weeks. And it's not. I've been trying to read this one for weeks, and it's not awful. It's just not compelling. So I'm going to give that one a 4-star also. So that is what I've been reading this week. I do hope to have this one done next week. I hope to have this one done by next week, but I don't know. I should be able to. I'm on page 128, and it's barely 300 pages, but I've been reading it for months. I will also be finishing Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which I'm listening to on an audiobook. And I have more PG Wodehouse books that I'm working on. I hope to have at least 2 of them finished next week. So please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I will talk to you next time.